On January 27th, Mars, a planet of war, conflict, aggression, but also heroic, noble, warrior archetype, as well as the ability to harness your own willpower, is about to move into the visible sky. This is called his heliacal rise on the 27th of January at 17 degrees of Capricorn. And why do you want to know about that? It's going to change your life for the next 2 years. So we're going to go into details about how this Mars rising changes your life, specifically in the Capricorn part of your natal sky, in the next 2 years. But before we get there, welcome to my channel. If you're new, my name is Lori Lothian. I am using the Western Tropical Zodiac. I love the whole sign house system. Please try that out. There's a little link in my description box below how to cast your chart in whole sign houses, free video tutorial. As well, if you're interested in getting my 2024 all sign video sale bundle, it's still for sale until the end of January for only $59. Go check it out in the link below the more button. Now let's get back to the story of Mars. Okay, so I want you to settle in. I want you to sort of grab a tea, a coffee, a glass of wine, a beer, whatever. This is going to be maybe a 90-minute video. We're going to do your sign, and I want you to listen for your rising sign first, and then sun sign next, and moon sign next, maybe in that order. Really just know that the rising sign is usually mostly accurate, whereas the sun sign can be about your father figures, career, purpose. The moon can be about mother figures, home, safety needs, and the body. So today, Mars is moving through Capricorn. I'm recording this on the January 22nd. He's been there since about the 3rd of January. And this is a place in the sky that he goes through every couple of years. And when he goes through here, he's here for about 6 weeks. He's exalted in Capricorn. He has very strong powers here. He is like the special VIP guest of Lord Saturn, who owns a region of sky that we know as Capricorn. And as he moves through here, he's got an extra special edge. He's kind of like from Clark Kent version of himself into Superman. And, to give you an example of what this is like, because when he rises here into the visible early morning sky, just before the sun rises, he starts to peek out according to astronomers. I'm asking astronomers, I'm going to astronomy websites. That's when he begins to be seen in the sky most visibly. That's what they're looking at. So I'm going to use that. When he rises in the sky, in any place, he initiates that part of the sky for a 2-year narrative. But when he's exalted in Capricorn, he's rising in a place of great power. And so we're going to talk about how that great power of will, drive, maybe decision-making, action-taking impacts the world, but also you individually. Now, why he's so powerful here, as a host guest of Lord Saturn, is because he does do really well in allegiances with Saturn, right? Saturn is, the other malefic, the greater malefic. Mars is the lesser malefic. Mars ends and cuts and severs things. And Saturn kind of contains, restricts, and boundaries things. And they have similar dispositions. And Saturn gets along with Mars and says, okay, well, sometimes their frustration, because Saturn goes slow, Mars goes quickly, more or less, but they still can get along. Now, one of the things about Mars rising here, I'll give you an example of what a Mars exaltation is like. I'll give you the last time Mars, 2 years ago, was in the sign of Capricorn. What happened? That was during the December-January period of December of 2021 into January of 2022. And you may remember that there was a worldwide truckers movement called the Truckers Convoy that started in Canada, where I live, where truckers descended upon the nation's capital of the country of Canada to protest for a couple of weeks. And it became a very big deal, forced vaccine mandates for truckers. And then it became a movement worldwide where truckers were coalescing in different cities together to protest vaccine mandates. Now, what's interesting about that is that trucks or planes, trains, automobiles, trucks, moving vehicles, heavy machinery, drivers thereof, like pilots, what do you call the conductor of a train, the truck driver of a truck, those are Mars stories. Those are Martian archetypes. So you can't make that up, that Mars was exalted in Capricorn during the window of time that this truckers convoy came to life and made a huge splash in the news cycle and was noted by most people around the world as quite the extraordinary and extreme event. Now, I use the word extreme because yes, when Mars is in Capricorn, he can be extreme because he's exalted. All exalted planets can go over the top. They can be almost like on a pedestal, like if you're born with an exalted planet that will tend to one day, reach a peak and fall. So a risen or exalted or pedestal planet can fall, right? So there's always a downside to those rising planets. So because he does things with that extreme energy, that intensity of an exaltation, the thing about this, it's good, but it may not be mild. You know what I mean? So you're going to have a big deal of change, mostly change of direction. Mars is the god of directionality and change, the planet that rules those features in the ancient traditions. And so, they didn't have Uranus to say big change, sudden change. They had Mars. So you're going to see a lot of life change going on in one of the 12 houses in your natal sky, right? We all have 12 whole sign houses. If you use Placidus, it's very complicated. You may have 2 signs wedged in one house. So that's why I'm telling you, use the ancient tradition that's still used in India of whole sign houses and has been reclaimed in Hellenistic and traditional astrology. And there's 12 houses, and each one has a sign, a whole house, a whole sign. And that Capricorn part of your sky is where the change is happening. If you were an Aries rising, sun or moon, that is your 10th house relative to the sun, moon, or rising, as if it's on the first house placement. So that's your career that's changing dramatically in the next 2 years. And we'll break it down per sign in great detail, but I want you to understand the idea of this before we do the in-depth details of this. Okay, so that's the idea of it. It's you're going to experience change here. When was the last time you had change in this part of your sky? It was in 1977. That is the last time Mars rose into the visible sky after being invisible behind, in front of, conjunct the sun and that's about a 4-month window of time every 2 years that he gets invisible for us all because he's too close to the sun for us to see him. And as he becomes visible again, coming out now outside the beams of the sun is a fresh young Mars being born again. He was an old Mars, almost 2 years old, goes into the sun. He's tired. He's a warrior with battle scars, and he's exhausted and just wants to rest. And he goes into the heart of the sun, which represents the king, or the king soul, the divine consciousness of the universe. He enters into the sun. He did that on November 17th, and now he becomes visible again on the other side as a fresh new Mars, on January 27th. So the last time he did that routine of dying in the heart of the sun and being visible again in the sign of Capricorn was January of 1977. And that indicates that if you were alive then, you can look to the Capricorn part of your sky and you can say to yourself what happened January of 77 all the way through to January, roughly 1979, in terms of major life changes. And we'll remind you of that as we go through the all signs. I will also talk about some historical context of Mars back then. You see, back in 1977, when he was rising visibly in January in Capricorn, he had died in the heart of the sun, not in Scorpio, but in Sagittarius. That's a different vibe, right? So he died in he was rebirthing himself in the heart of the sun in a cazimi in Sagittarius and rising weeks later in Capricorn. This time he's dying in the heart of the sun in Scorpio. And that's his home kingdom. That's his feminine water sign. That's one of his powerful places. He's the ruler of that. It's his domicile. So he's very strong where he died in the sun, heart of the sun, and he's very strong where he rises. That's a 1-2 punch that I couldn't get enough data on. Like I'd have to go back hundreds of years to find that combination. So I didn't do that much research. I got us back to at least Mars rising in 1977 in the visible sky. So one thing I want to talk about is the picture of the sky. So I'm going to show it to you in a minute, and the Sabian symbol. Now, there is a star with Mars, the star Vega. We're going to talk about the power of that star around. He's at 17 degrees. When he's rising, the star is around 16 degrees of the sign of Capricorn. He's in orb of that star Vega. Has some very interesting, powerful, and positive meanings for how and where he rises. But he's also connecting to some major other players in the sky. He's conjunct Mercury. He's connecting he's squaring the nodes of fate and the asteroids Lucifer and Shiva, the destroyer. He's opposite the asteroid Apollo, the sun god. So there's a lot of intense connections to other placements and planets. What I really like is he's also trining or flowing in a lucky, opportune way to Uranus in Taurus, co-present with Jupiter. That's exciting. That's the most positive part. And when we do the all signs, I will focus quite a lot on that Mars-Uranus energy that inherently bakes in, like you bake a design into clay, a tablet, that theme of Mars, okay, flowing to Uranus, And that sense of that energy being ever present for you over the next 2 years. Uranus and Taurus, Earth trine from Mars and Capricorn, a very significant life story is emerging here. And you can add a little bit more spice to that, or a little more juice to that, because it forms a grand Earth trine with Juno, the goddess of committed partnership. And that is also a goddess connected to money. Another one of her names was Moneta, for coinage. We're going to see a lot of change in the way money, banking, coins are operating. We're probably going to see the beginning of a true digital currency in the 2 years that follow. Mars rising, trining Juno, who's also Moneta, trining Uranus, which is the internet invention and new things. It's going to be pretty darn exciting. And there's an asteroid called Albion sitting with Uranus. It's how not to do things the way they've always been done, to bust away from the rules of the game, the rules of how things have always been, and to begin to do something different. Of course, Uranus himself is like an innovator, an iconoclast, and a rebel energy as well. So there's an inventor as well. Juno happens to be sitting in Virgo for this Earth trine at 21 degrees during Mars's rise at 17. And that's where we get that Earth trine forming with Uranus and Taurus at 19. Virgo is a sign of health. And so there's probably health and medicine things that are going to occur to do with Juno themes. Juno could be collaborations or partnerships, but we could probably see some aggressive new health breakthroughs during the next 2 years as a result of Mars rising in Capricorn in the 27th of January. Now, we're also likely to see war. And I'm going to say that with a sad voice. Couple of thoughts about this. Mars does bring war and conflict. You know, as I said, he was a trucker's protest, not a trucker's war, last time he was in Capricorn. But he's also on a Sabian symbol. The 17 degrees of Capricorn on the 27th rounds up to 18 degrees of Sabian symbol. And that is called the Union Jack symbol. And I'm going to say that Sabian symbols, 360 symbols, one for each degree of the zodiac, can be somewhat uncanny if you don't think they're useful. I'm born with my moon on the Sabian symbol for the crystal ball gazer, and my moon's in the house of the goddess, the third house. And I not only do I do astrology, but I also was a psychic clairvoyant medium in my 30s, gazing at the proverbial crystal ball. So I'm going to go with the Sabian symbol, and I will be showing you the sky, but I want to talk a bit first. The Sabian symbol is the Union Jack flies from a new British warship. All right. The Union Jack flies from a new British warship. Well, it's not flying from any old ship. It's a warship. So we're back in the idea, what happens when, the energy of war is invoked by an exalted, superpowered Mars, ruled by a Saturn sitting in the sign of Pisces, right? That's where Saturn's sitting as Mars rises in his home kingdom of Capricorn. That's something to consider, because what is Saturn and Pisces about, right? He tries to control, restrain, contain, and boundary Piscean things. Water rights. Pisces can be pharmaceuticals and drugs. Structures and forms for the underprivileged, the underdog, and refugees. These are Piscean themes. Saturn's trying to structure, contain, control. Like in Canada just announced, as Mars went into Capricorn, for example, we are going to put a limit on the number of foreign students we allow into our country every year, because it's getting insane, and Canadians can't get our own medical care or housing anymore because our government stupidly has instituted a massively crazy immigration policy that we've had so many new immigrants. We've gone up by like 2 million new people a year in the last 2 or 3 years. It's not sustainable. And we don't have enough homes for our current population or enough medical resources and doctors. And all of a sudden, everything is stretched way too thin. So there's the example of what I mean. Saturn and Pisces containing the refugees. That whole Texas border wall, refugees, or, the pipeline from South America all the way up, to the US, that's always in the news in the sort of right-wing Republican side of the story. That and build the wall, Donald Trump, right? That stuff is going to be really big. It's going to come right back to us. It's going to be in the stories of the next 2 years as Mars exalted gets into action with that kind of narrative with Saturn in Pisces, which is associated with the underprivileged, the underdog, jails and prisons. Look for major prison reform. Big changes in the next 2 years, I bet. Okay, because Mars rising, Saturn in Pisces, prisons and hospitals. I say reform because Mars is trining Uranus, which is rebellion and reform, and the asteroid Albion conjunct Uranus, and doing things in a new way, not following the same old system or the rules, busting outside the way it's always been done. So hospital, medical system reform, prison reform, worldwide, these kinds of themes are going to be very evocative for us. Mars is going to push a new agenda. He's going to drive things in a new direction. Now, Mars is also conjunct, by the way, Mercury, and we're going to talk about that in a bit. I want to open up the chart to show you that. The Union Jack flies from the new British warship, Sabian Symbol. This is literally what I've got on sabiansymbols.com as a delineation. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. The symbol talks about supervision, border protection, and control. And Saturn is boundaries and borders, right? Walls and divisions, like to wall something off from something else. And so where Mars separates things, right? Saturn's more like, here's the boundary between the things that are now separate. So this is interesting. Border protection and control. There can be a feeling of having to oversee a large empire where reliability and leadership is vital. This can be a tiring responsibility, but there can be an awareness of the protection of all who went before. However, political and social restraints from the past could be causing you to feel that you've somehow got to wage war. You've somehow got to wage war because of political and social restraints from the past. Issues to do with the government can come up, whether you agree with what they do or not, and you may be confronted by feelings, may be confronted with having to make your presence felt and guard your territory. Ooh, so keywords are colonialism, protectionism, nationalism, border patrols, border protection, the ruling elite. You know, Capricorn is called the House of Kings, and it's associated with a longer myth to do with the restoration of light after a time of great calamity in which the sun was blotted out. So there's a big archetypal ancient myth to do with Capricorn, the sea goat, and the return of the sun, interestingly. But sun is king as well. And Capricorn is the house of kings. And I want to bring that up only because the ruling elite, the kings or the leaders, belong here. Empires, the mother country, war games, pitting people against each other, strong arm tactics. All right. Getting out the big guns, social disintegration. I hope that doesn't cheer you up as much as it doesn't cheer me up, because we have quite a possibility of an expanding conflagration of war in the Middle East. And I'm recording on January 22nd as I record this for you, because this is a good evergreen video. You'll be listening to this, I hope, for a long time. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, there's a Mars webinar on the 25th. Just sign up for $14 if you want to go into a deeper dive of how to interpret it using your own sign. But I would say to you, your rising sign, especially for your own life, I would say, you know, this war in the Middle East, right, is so much about power and wealth. It's not about what we see on the surface. And there are vested interests in this power wealth grab of why that strip of land is so important to nations like Britain and US and Israel. Has to do with offshore gas rights. It has to do with putting a canal. There already is a plan to create a new canal, not the Suez Canal, but the Ben Gurion Canal that was already highlighted as something Israel wants to do. It was either 2023 or 2021 that they set the plan in motion and said that we're going to build a canal through Israel to get to, you know, from the Mediterranean to the Red Sea, and we're going to forget about the whole Suez thing. We're going to have our own canal, which is, of course, a major economic boon for the country, but also would be involving the Western nations like France and England and US, probably in co-construction and then usage rights and stuff. And yet the only way to do it effectively is to cut through Gaza. Yeah, cut through Gaza. And so you don't own Gaza. You can't cut through it, right? So you just, figure it out, guys. It's not what you think it is. So we're going to see more war. We're going to see expansion, conflagration. I don't think this Middle East thing is contained. I think it's going to blow up. I think Iran will get involved because Mars is going through the sign of Leo for quite a bit, starting in the fall through to June of 2020, June of 2025. And so this fall of 24, June of 25, the rising sign for Iran, one of the charts is Leo, Mars is war, and that's Iran going to war. So it's going to take a longer time for this thing to become the horrible thing it's going to become. And it looks really, really rough in the sky in the fall of 2024 for retribution type actions being dispensed by vengeful and angry people who have been massacred. Let's just call it that. All right. So Now that we're done with that happy war story with Mars exalted rising in Capricorn, right? Now that we've completed that joyful story, let's talk about the star Vega. So Vega is in the lyre or the lyre of Orpheus, sometimes also called the lyre or lyre of Apollo. I don't know how to pronounce that word. It's a musical instrument. It's a harp, okay? It is a positive star. It has qualities of the nature of Venus, the nature of Mercury. It's more or less considered to be a benefic energy. So we have something good trying to happen here on that star, which I really like. And I'm going to read for a couple of delineations from a couple of my star books. I have, the Living Stars, but I'm going to read from the Fixed Stars book by Oscar Hoffman. If you want to see that book, it's a wonderful resource. Oscar Hoffman, The Fixed Stars. I've had this one for a while. Love this book. And I'm going to see what he says about Vega, which is also called the falling gripe, whatever that is. He delineates this as having beneficence, hopefulness, idealism, refinement, outwardly pretentious, grave and sober, or lascivious. Now, that's if you're born with that star on a planet, right? But when that star is appearing in the sky with Mars, he says that it can involve scientific interests, right? Unpopular opinions. Yes, there will be a lot of rebellion and a lot of protests. It's going to look like Haight-Ashbury. It's going to look like the Vietnam War protests all over again in the next 2 years. You're going to see a lot of mass protests. It's already started. It's going to get more intense. You may see a lot of economic protests. We're not going to spend our money here. That's because it's connected to Taurus, right? And that's where you have currency and money. And people may vote with their money. They may protest with their money. It's already, we've seen that with brand, what do you call it when you don't spend on a brand? Boycotts. A lot of economic boycotts as a measure of protest, as well as, like people with placards in the street. But anyway, we do see here a scientific interest, unpopular opinions, moral courage. So when this star Vega aligns with Mars, which it is, Mars is rising on it, we can see moral courage. Yes, I would love a little of moral courage in my own life and in the world in general. And also it's favorable for gain. By gain, they mean, wealth and prosperity. Next, if it's close to Mars, Mercury, which it is, because Mercury and Mars are conjunct exactly almost at 17 degrees of Capricorn rising. So as Mars is visible, he's like mushing himself up in the, a love up with Mercury. So the two celestial lights will be right beside each other in the sky. But with the star Vega bound into this area of the sky, when you see Vega and Mercury connected, according to Oscar Hoffman, you can look at double dealing, secret enemies, trouble with the mother, secret enemies in influential positions, thwarted ambitions. And so we got a bit of a mismatch of energy between that star and its associations with Mercury versus Mars. Now I'm moving over here to the list of fixed stars in the book, The Little Book of Fixed Stars by Elizabeth Hazel, another fantastic resource. And what does Elizabeth Hazel say about this star? She mentions that it is, it's connected to the Judge of Heaven, okay? The Judge of Heaven associated with the Egyptian Mot. Now, Mot would weigh your soul with a feather, and see if your soul was lighter than the feather. If it wasn't, I guess you had to reincarnate again. You didn't get to go straight to heaven. You had to do some more work on earth plane school or something like that. So, the idea of having a very light karma, a very light soul, is what Mot was doing. M-A-A-T with apostrophe, Ma'at, Egyptian god, to Judge of Heaven. So there's a Judge of Heaven energy apparently with this star Vega, which is fascinating, right? So celestial judgment, divine judgment, measuring the weight of our soul. And she also says it's good for success in business, and it's got magic and charismatic, artistic beauty, oratorial skills, how you can speak if you're born with that star. It can be connected to fashion, allure, fabrics, luxury, and it can be a sign of a star that you can use for good or for evil. By the way, Vega was the North Star for the globe, for the world, for the Earth, the body that, the real Earth, like astronomy wise. It was a North Star in 10,000 BC. That's very fascinating, right? Because that's think about that star in lore. All the lore about that star goes back to people looking at this as a North Star a guiding North Star in 10,000 BC. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Link to the Golden Age. Finally, she does mention that it can be an ability to settle differences and disputes and bring reconciliation after a time of distress. So, reconciliation after a time of distress, when we have disputes that preceded Mars rising on the star, I do think it will lead to some resolution of the situation in the Middle East for that old two-state solution. But not without a great cost, you know, and I'm really not wanting to speak too much about it. I don't want to be a bearer of horrific tidings, but the cost will be horrific, and we'll see the cost next October. And you can, you know, write this down, mark my words, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Alrighty. We're moving into the next part of the story. Let me show you the sky. And we're getting to the all signs portion. I think this video will end up being minimum of 90 minutes long. So let's roll. So here we have a picture of the sky on January 27th. I just put noon roughly or so in Vancouver, Canada. Mars moves pretty slowly, so that's fine, right? He's at that 17th degree, probably for a day before and after. 16 degrees the day before on the 26th, 17 on the 27th. Yeah, 18 on the 28th. He's moving pretty quickly, actually. Alrighty. So it's moving as fast as the sun normally moves, a degree a day. That's interesting. So the sun is in Aquarius with Pluto when he's rising. I just took them out of the mix. It's just too junky, too much to look at. We're just trying to simplify. So here he is conjunct Mercury. What does it mean when Mars and Mercury are co-joined? And don't forget, Venus is co-present, and we call it co-present. She's watching what's happening here. This is Saturn's house, as you can see. Let me annotate because it makes it easier for the newbies who are new to astrology. Give me a second, guys. Annotations. All right. So here you can see these two are together at 17 degrees with Venus watching over. This property is sextiling Saturn. He's in a whole sign sextile, a flowing relationship and witnessing the events within his own home as he's in Pisces, which I described the meaning of Pisces earlier. And then we can see that the nodes of fate at 18 degrees of Libra and 18 degrees of Aries are involved in the mix with Chiron as well. Now, there's a lot going on here. We'd be here 1,000 years if I covered every little detail, but I would say because Mars rises square the nodes of fate, that this is going to have a massive impact on the world, as well as individually each of us. The nation of Israel is a Libra rising, close to 17 degrees of Libra. Therefore, this is going to definitely be impactful on the nation of Israel. There is literally no doubt about it. This is also the 11th house of the United States of America, the 11th house of Benjamin Netanyahu, the 11th house of the Sibley USA chart, where the South Node sits, right here. And then the North Node would be the 5th house of the USA. And in mundane astrology, the 5th house can be stuff to do with a news cycle. I mean, not like sort of like the entertainment industry, the news, the information coming through that part of the sky. But really going to focus on this is an Israel story. You ask me, this is a very big Israel story that we're going to see this Mars rising be a lot about that Israel problem, right? The war. It's not just the day of the rising, right? We're talking about the next 2 years as this bakes in a change energy of some sort. Alrighty, and we want to talk a little bit about Uranus because he brings change, rebellion, invention, freedom. Jupiter's co-present. There's a flow between Mars and Uranus. Nice tight flow. This is what we're going to talk about for your sign. And then lastly, because it's going to bring exciting change. And lastly, there's Apollo, a sun god, right opposite Mars. Yikes, that's an opposition. It's not easy. It creates like two differing agendas. A sun god, Apollo, can represent a world leader or someone who is like in the celebrity or world leader energy in the public eye, looking like a god or a sun god, a solar figure. Mars is opposing a solar figure can look like, I'm going to say the word, I'm going to spell it, Assination. Okay, someone being, okay, I'll try saying it. I just don't want the algorithm doesn't like certain words here and it'll dump the video. So you know what I'm saying, right? So Mars in Capricorn exalted, opposite a sun god can be exactly what it is. A sword, a weapon, a knife, device that has, bullets aimed at a world leader. Okay. Now, any world leader, I don't know. Like Biden has his Jupiter in Cancer. For example, the sun of the United States, is really where the sun god sits right now. US sun is around 13 degrees of Cancer in the Sibley natal chart. Sun god Apollo is on the sun of the USA. Biden has his Jupiter here, which can represent leader as well. Very possible we're looking at some demise of a leader or a king. Now, I already predicted that Charles would step down in my Pluto video that just came out, and I did that video well before he had some hospital prostate problem. So he'll step down. That will be the end, the cutting, the severing of a kinghood for sure. And I brought that up because Pluto is square his moon. I thought that's going to do him in. He'll have a health challenge or something. He won't stay with the job. But looking at this, there's definitely something Mars is trying to do against the sun of the United States, the leadership of the United States, the ruling party or ruler of the United States. This is not auspicious. Obviously, this is difficult. And because it forms a T-square to the south node, and the south node is where the Israel ascendant is, again, we're looking at some particularly daunting narrative. And in fact, what we end up getting is what's called a grand cross. Now, it's a hot mess on the screen, but a grand cross is like a crucifixion, a make or break. It's demanding something. It's cardinal energy. It's a cardinal grand cross, which demands some action, an initiative that's difficult, that can be almost like a make or break energy, okay, involving what I've just discussed. Certainly, also, this is Lucifer. And he's like a rebel angel, a bearer of light. I always look at him as a place where we see rebellion. And this is Shiva, the destroyer, on the south node, on the ascendant of Israel. Now, is Shiva the destroyer, causing great destruction for new creation to emerge? Or is Israel going to be receiving the energies of Shiva, the destroyer? Which one? I am not sure. All right. Anything else I want to say? And that messy chart. I'm going to talk next about Mars and Mercury. What I want to say about Mars and Mercury, let's just stop the share for a sec, is I want to tell you about what happens when those two archetypal energies join together. One of my favorite resources is Renn Butler's The Archetypal Universe. Please check my description box below where I have a link to his book on Amazon. But the point is, I'm not even getting an affiliate fee. If you're an astrologer and you don't have this book or astrologically curious, please get it. Now, it's one of my friends and a teacher. I've learned archetypal astrology with him, and it's an amazing, amazing type of astrology. So what I want to tell you about is what happens when you get Mars connected to Mercury, when those two archetypal messenger of the gods meets with Mars. Now, Mars is war and Mercury is news. What does that mean? We're going to have 2 years of a lot of news stories to do with war. But Capricorn is power structures, top-down power structures. It can be finances. It can be connected to the stock markets. Mercury especially connects to stock markets, especially commerce in the sign of Capricorn. Major upheaval, major change, major upset going on to do with stock markets, the economy, banking industries over the next 2 years. Mars does not play nice. Mars says he cuts, severs, but he's good for you. He cuts the grand green limb. You don't want it. He cuts the dead wood off the rose bush so it flourishes. We resist cutting things away and severing and separating, but we need to separate, cut, and end in order for something new to emerge, something better. So what happens when this is a Mercury-infused Mars, right? He's rising in holding his hands with Mercury. Wow, let's take a quick look at that. Mercury Mars. Okay, the principles of Mercury Mars: passionate mind, sharp mind, mental energy and determination, clear and decisive communication, pointed humor, but on the shadow side, and a conjunction can be a hard aspect. Sharp opinions, argument, rash and heated words, pointed sarcasm, insults, hectic mental stress. When I see Mars and Mercury together, I go hard words, conflictual words, harsh communication, using your words to go to battle, communicating in a fighting manner. That old expression, them's fighting words. Okay. The shadow qualities can definitely look like a lack of harmony in speaking, just being rude, etc. Let me look for a few ideas here. Our sword shall play the orators for us by someone named Marlowe, who's born with Mercury square Mars. Our sword shall play the orators for us. Hmm. Right. Now, Mars is very much sometimes, a planet that just simply wants to adventure somewhere, go somewhere. And Mercury also is involved in travel. So there's a bit of a sense that your Capricorn part of your sky could involve some adventurous travel. And Mercury is a protector of travelers. So that's kind of auspicious as well. That's just me thinking aloud about some of that stuff, right? So the Uranus piece, what happens when Mars, Mercury, and Uranus are all doing something together, according to Renn Butler, because Mars and Mercury are co-joined, flowing to Uranus and Taurus. We get things like lightning fast, sharp mind, making plans swiftly, surges of mental enthusiasm, feverishly scattered thinking on the dark side, flashes of anger and lashing out. So those are some fun ways to look at it. Certainly, we see a lot of stuff going on in the world, in the troll land or in the public discourse, where people have lost all civility. I totally have. And I think we're going to see some repair of civility because Mercury rules speech. And, what is that amendment, the freedom of speech? There's a lot going on with censorship right now for other reasons connected to Pluto and returning cycles around paradigm shifts and a desire to clamp down and control the narrative. And that happened when Pluto was in Aquarius in the 1800s, and we're seeing it again. There's a lot of desire to censor things, right? To contain the narrative, to orient oneself to spin cycle the news in order to get what the powers want, the elite want, the kings want. And I think that Mars is conjuncting Mercury, trining Uranus to break that up, to resist that, to rebel against that, to not allow censorship to happen. In Canada, we have a couple of really radical internet censorship bills that passed. It's crazy that it passed. And our conservative government is going to take over in 25 if there's not an election before then, and they're going to reverse it because that was a liberal government move and everyone's unhappy about it. And it influences people, even like me on YouTube. I might get censored, and it's all about Canadian content. You cannot show Canadian content in Facebook anymore. Facebook wouldn't agree to pay our Canadian government fees for news agencies distributing their information through Facebook. So it's gone really south, guys. So, even things like there's a group of scientists, I think it's Stanford or somewhere, Princeton, I think it's Stanford, who are censoring stories about medical stories as misinformation and then blocking and banning in conjunction with like Twitter. And that was going on. I think it's kind of falling away now. So you're going to get a lot of this, I think, this feeling of the whole concern about freedom of speech, censorship, about misinformation, but also manipulation of the news stories. Ooh, I just lost my light. Manipulation of the news stories, being a part of what Mars rebel, Uranus rebellion, protest, and I think there's going to be a lot of that in the news cycle and a lot of resistance to attempts to do that, and hopefully rectification of that kind of shit going on in the world. All right, now I've been talking for an awfully long time. I really don't know how long. Hopefully not too long, maybe an hour. We're going to do the all signs. Let's get rolling. So remember, I'm going to talk about an area of life that's going to change for you that you haven't seen changed or doing change since 77 January. Add 2 years. That time, everything was different. I mean, we didn't have Saturn in Pisces. We didn't have Mars co-join with Mercury. So the area of change that's similar is just the meaning of the whole sign Capricorn house in your chart. That's what's similar. And I'm doing a deep dive webinar to look at how your chart, looking at your natal Mars and your natal Mercury, how those two energies of your natal sky can foretell a bit how this can play out for you over the next 2 years. So if you want to do that webinar, check in the description box below. It's only $14. It's live. There's a replay if you can't make it. So on the 25th, 2 days before the visible heliacal rise. Now I'm going to tell you, I'm going to an astronomy site for all that data. I've heard some Babylonian astrologers say Mars isn't rising until May. I just can't see that. If you're talking about when Mars can be seen everywhere in the world, from the lowest to highest latitude, perhaps. But we're talking about astronomy, and we're talking about, I looked at this cycle and it works, And if you go to watch my Mars Cazimi video too, you'll see how Mars dying in Scorpio is a cycle that, plays out on a regular rhythm as well. And we can make sense of the world through that. I did forget to mention one thing. I wanted to tell you just a little bit, excuse me, about the vibe of 1977, 78, and 79 when Mars rose in Capricorn. What were some of the major stories in the universe? I mean, what was happening then? So you might remember that Somalia in the Horn of Africa, a poverty-stricken country, invaded Ethiopia in 1977 to 1979, and they called that the Ogaden War of 1977 to 1979. And that war was one of the Mars events that occurred because Mars rose in January in that part of the sky. As well, we also saw the movie Star Wars come out in 1977. Star Wars. You got to love that stuff, right? What else was happening in 1977? Let me take a look and see about gas prices. I'm trying to remember if that's when Jimmy Carter and all that stuff happened. I really can't remember the dates of the Carter story because I'm Canadian, but I'm thinking it could have been Carter weighing gasoline tax price stuff. Okay. How much was gas in 77? Oh, that's not what I need. It's just giving gas prices everywhere. Okay. Highest gas prices of presidential election years already was 1977 March. So there was a huge surge in gasoline prices, okay, in 1977 that coincided with Mars in the sign of Capricorn, which involves resources and wealth and the earth itself rising there. And we saw a rise of gas prices or rise of resource prices. We could just simply say that. What else was happening back then? Let's just see, because I'm doing this real time on my back end. What was happening with Israel in 1977? Because I bet you any money there's something big. Israel, 1977. I know there was a Beirut war somewhere in the late 70s. Well, the Arab-Israeli war was 1973. In 1977, the Israeli legislative election happened, and in May of 1977, the ninth for the Ninth Knesset, which is, part of their government. And for the first time in Israeli political history, the right wing led by Likud won a plurality of seats, ending almost 30 years of rule by the left wing alignment and its predecessors. Well, that's a big deal, right, guys? Because it is the Likud party and Netanyahu who are causing or like drastically berserker response to the October 7th events for various malefic reasons that I outlined at the beginning of the video. So you saw in 1977 a rise of power of the actual super right-wing religious Zionist conservative element in the nation of Israel. Mars is rising in Capricorn yet again. Yep, that was a big deal. And anything else was going on? That was considered an earthquake election, by the way. People were like, Camp David Accords. Okay. In 1977, I think we started the Camp David Accords with Anwar Sadat and Begin. In September of 1978, they established a framework for a historic peace treaty concluded between Israel and Egypt in March of 79. Okay. I'm glad I looked. So the Camp David Accords and the peace treaty that came from the Camp David Accords was occurring during the 1977 to 1979 window of time. So I've given you some ideas of what you may see. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Alrighty. So hopefully there can be a peace accord, because Venus, the goddess of peace, is sitting with the god of war. And I'd say in the next 2 years, you will see a solution to the two-state solution. You will see a peace accord. You may even see some justice. Jupiter, looking for some justice for things that can be considered criminal during actions in war as well over the next 2 years. Declarations and maybe prosecutions. For the nation of Israel, Capricorn is the land, the homeland. It's also the opposite party from a ruling party in a mundane astrology chart. But it's kind of a coalition government right now, I believe, in Israel. But this part, and Israel's an ethno state, right? It's almost a theocratic state. It's not to be an Israeli, to be an Israeli citizen, the new law in 2018 states you need to be, ethnically Israeli, I mean, ethnically Jewish. So it's an ethno state, right? It's not just a democracy. Just like think about that for a minute. And now the religious belief there is that they need all the land because that's their right, their entitlement, and the Mashiach or the Messiah can come back once they get all the land. I mean, there's a lot of religious fundamentalism beneath what's going on there. Now, here's Venus. She is the goddess of peace, the god of war. Mercury, communications, contracts, negotiations, deals, treaties, peace treaties. So I'm going to predict that what Mars is doing is his rising. He's trying to do another Camp David Accords, but you also see the increasing rise perhaps of the Knesset or the right-wing party, or perhaps the overthrow of that party, because what happened in 1977 was the election was considered a shock or an earthquake election in Israel. But because this is land for Israel, and Mars is separation and cutting, also war and aggression. Mercury is deals and peace. You're going to see the map redrawn, right? We're going to see the geopolitical map of the Israel area redrawn in the next 2 years. I don't know how it's going to be redrawn, but it's going to be redrawn. I can see many ways it can be redrawn, like Israel taking Gaza and offering the Palestinians the West Bank, for example, or the Golan Heights, but this kind of thing is going to change the geographical lines of engagement over in the Middle East. They were ready to go for all signs because I'm done with it. All the politics it says, I've covered, and let's go into Aries, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Let's start with Aries. Of course, I'm going to just change the chart to whole sign houses. Give me a minute, guys. That's because when I'm locked this into 0 Aries for us. Edit the chart, make it a whole sign. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit my bell for notifications. And if you're new to my channel, give me a try. I've been putting out somewhere near 30 videos a month lately. And I do all my video premieres that I can attend live with my viewers, listening to the content and taking your questions in real time. All right, so here we have the sky. And what you're looking at is obviously not the right sign, so we'll move it. Aries, 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 Aries Sun, Aries Moon, and Aries Rising sign. Well, number one, I'm looking for a book. Give me a minute. Oh, it's here. Okay. Number one, you need to go back to 1977, January, add 2 years, because that was when your career was taking off and there were changes in your career. So it's not just that your career is lifting up, but you have changes. Well, you go, I was a student in university or high school. Well, then you were academically succeeding in the visible part of your sky. Something was doing well for you. So I was back then in 1977, 78, I guess I would have been in grade 8. Not grade 8. I would have been in we had grade 13 for high school. I would have been grade 10 and 11 probably. And I was doing academically very well. I was exceeding my expectations academically and increasing my academic success. So success in your visible reputation is what you can see here. Aries, Sun, Moon, and Rising. You can see greater new directions or changes in career. Mars cuts, ends, and severs. Maybe you're going to end a career path and adopt a new one. And if you're talking about your sun, that is mostly about your career. If it's your moon sign you're listening to, it could be a change of home relative to your career. And if it's your rising sign, it's definitely a change in your career direction. So a career change, a career direction is successful. Mars is exalted because Venus is there. It can be refined and prosperous and good and fun and enjoyable. And because Mercury is here, there's a lot to say about commercial success with Mercury and Capricorn. So you can have financial and commercial success as well in your career. So good for people who are speakers or writers or want to communicate something to the world with ambition, with drive, with willpower, with passion, and also be financially successful as a result. And you can see that, this is being watched over by Saturn in the 12th house. This is Saturn looking over at it from the house of foreign lands and foreign shore revenue into, borderless income, PayPal, Stripe, from international places and people. So there's a lot of the international, long distance, far off revenue sources that seem to be useful for some of you. You may also look at the 12th house as your spiritual life being more aligned with your work, because Saturn is like kind of sage-like here, like the monk in the cave. And you may be able to even be more cave-like and monk-like, but also very successful and more in a sort of contemplative alignment with the work you're up to, that you're here to do. I don't want to go too much into the square, the nodes of fate, other than to say, I'll probably do a whole separate video. Well, I don't have time, but Mars squaring, it'll be in my weekly video, but next week. Mars squaring the nodes of fate for you. There is tension here in your chart. Like, it wants to create greatness, but you have to come to terms with being a Luciferian rebel and healing your wound of identity, at the same time allowing for Shiva the destroyer to destroy perhaps the marriage, the business partnership, the significant client outreach that you have, or relationships with your public, in order for something new to be born again. And then we're going to next talk about the idea that Uranus would like you to have radical rags to riches, anyone? Change, excitement, unexpected developments, positive unexpected developments, Jupiter, around prosperity and bounty, because you're doing your earnings in a new way. You're breaking the rules, you're coloring outside the lines, you're finding innovation and invention. You might be using technology and the internet in order to jumpstart a higher level of earning success than you've probably seen since 77, 78, and into 79, right? That's the last time this energy played through your sky. Jupiter, he's all about bringing you bounty, but Albion says don't do it the way it's always been done. You break some rules. You're going to just innovate, invent, and try something new, and you're going to be successful financially. If you're employed by someone, then you go for a kind of employment structure, company that's exciting, unexpectedly, coming your way, innovative and inventive. It's really, really a good vibe for both career and money. This is the Artha houses. With Juno in the 6th house as well, of work and work routines, this is saying you might partner up with someone. You might partner up in your work. You may not do it alone, or you might find a commitment from somebody in the coworker space that really enlivens your career and money success over the next 2 years. Certainly, if you're an independent entrepreneur and you want to be collaborative, this is really a wonderful time for you to find partners or partner in order to succeed and climb the ladder of your own success, right? The sea goat scrabbling up the mountaintop of great success with Mars pushing the way. And that's about that. Let's go on to the next sign. Just before I do, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. I need a chocolate break because I'm having a hunger attack, so I'll be right back. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And guys, the drill is smash the like button. All right, let's go on to the Taurus narrative for the next 2-year story of your life. And this is a rare thing. Don't forget, it's like 1977, and it'd be another 40 years before this happens again. Rising Mars. Okay, so Mars's heliacal rise in Capricorn will occur on January 27th. Last seen 77 January to 79 January. That's the last time the vibe of change happened in your sky. In this area of Capricorn, which is your 9th house. This is a house of spirituality, faith. It's a house of publications, book publications, academics, higher learning institutions, courts and legal justices and matters to do with the courts, things to do as well with Dharma, your right alignment, and some degree of luck, and sometimes patriarchal or father figures. It's also called the house of God. So that's an area of change. Now, it flows to you. Mars is rising in a flow called an Earth trine to your ascendant. So this is going to feel good for you. I hope it felt good back in 1977. January, add 2 years, right? Plus 24 months. And it's back again. I do like Venus here, sort of benefically watching over it and saying we can align this with feeling more happy, more pleasure, more delight in your life over the next 2 years regarding the 9th house themes I just mentioned. Now, if you're wanting to get to marry for the 3rd time, your 3rd legal marriage, that would be your 9th house as well. And there's big changes or positivity up there as well in the next couple of years. With this energy, though, I would say don't forget Mercury and Mars together can be combative speech or difficult or harsh words. This is a house of legal and court matters. So there may be some of this kind of intensity for some of you going to court, going to battle, battling in court with good arguments, but you'll win. You'll win because Venus is sort of stamping in her blessings here and things should all work out. You also might find that this is about travel. Mercury is a patron protector of travelers and involves travel. So does Mars, love, adventure. And I think a lot of you Tauruses are going to travel quite a bit, especially to foreign countries and foreign lands, far off places, at pilgrimages and adventures and travel for many of you Capricorns over the next couple of years. With the energy of this squaring the nodes of fate, there is a sense perhaps that you might find yourself in a very critically difficult action, catalytic action needed. Decisions must be taken regarding things to do with rental situations and pets, to do with debts, to do with your health, to do with your work environment. That's the square to the south node with Shiva, the destroyer. A lot of you might look at this as an opportunity to choose a new career path and dramatically change your career path, for example. And it doesn't have to be a negative thing. But on the other hand, when it comes to rental properties and things to do with animals or domestic pets, these are sixth house matters. And there seems to be a shift there, a letting go or releasing. Some of you may change your home, move to a new rental property or rent a new property out. It depends on who you are and what you're doing in your life, whether that's something feasible or viable. Jupiter is in your first house with Uranus. Excuse me. Excuse me, Taurus. Hang on. Water. In your first house, trining the rising of Mars. Okay. I might have to stop the video and start again. Elsa, pause the recording. So sorry, guys. That's because I was just wolfing down a bunch of almonds with chocolate on them. Okay, probably breathing in the almond chocolate. All right, back to the story. We got to roll. We got all these guys to get done here. So you're going to find maybe in the 2 years that follows this particular heliacal rise of Mars that you could have some really positive change to your health, to your physical wellness. Jupiter, greater benefic, flows here with Uranus to the ninth house, Mars rising. Maybe moving to another country or traveling to another country is better for your health. Maybe you find certain situations academically that improve if you're a higher educational learning environment, and that allows you to improve your health. Or also with a trine to Juno in your fifth house, this is really good for maybe being in a significant long-term committed love story that involves conception, procreation, and children in the next 2 years. I also would wonder, with that Uranus in the house of you're a rebel. With Albion, you're breaking the rules. You're doing things your own way, coloring outside the lines of your life. You're making decisions and taking actions from a place of faith, hope, and optimism because you've got Jupiter baking in here. But those decisions are favoring you to find more joy, vitality, play, and pleasure in your life, as well as maybe, again, as I said, begin to think about having children. Venus is flowing to the house of children. She's a conception goddess. She's flowing to you. Jupiter's baking in here. It's kind of got a lot of either creative project conceptions, entrepreneurial business conceptions for you, or literally you or your partner conceiving children in the 2 years that follow, or grandchildren coming to you in the 2 years that follow this Mars rising. So children or grandchildren on the way for some of you Taurus, Sun, Moon, and rising. And, with Saturn watching the whole thing from the 11th house, there's a chance for your financial career gains to pick up a little bit and your career gains to look really good on you over the next 2 years in particular. Again, some of those gains may involve countries that are not from here, whether you're traveling there, working for an international company. These kinds of themes could play out. You might even, for some of you, relocate to another country. That would be very possible in this as well, in order to achieve greater financial success. All right, Gemini, Sun, Moon, and Rising. I have a progressed Gemini Sun, so which is career. I always think about that when I do Gemini. Righty. So chunky money like inheritances, tax rebates, financing, bank loans, taxes, insurance payouts, royalty income, evergreen income, passive income. subsidiary, whatever, whatever money that you just don't get in an everyday earned paycheck kind of way. It's not your earned income. Comes to you in an unearned way. It's separate from the daily way you make money. I include ad and royalty income over here, by the way. You should see J.K. Rowling's chart. Trillionaire based on, derivative income, royalty income. So royalty income as well. So this kind of money that's, chunky money is going to increase for you over the next 2 years. But go back to how your finances may have increased for you as a younger person in a few years ago in January of 77, right? Add, 24 months and it's back again. So sometimes here Mars is like how to separate the money out in a divorce, right? Separation of assets in a divorce, or going to battle a little bit and discourse with difficult conversations around separation of monies, inheritances, in like family monies and legacy wealth monies, and how to separate that money out. You could be very ambitious, action-oriented, and driven to buy stocks, to invest in the stock market. Mars can be like that with Mercury, the god of commerce, and the stock markets here. This can be very successful to your window in terms of investments in the markets. Venus is a money goddess and brings a benefic vibe here, allowing for successful investment opportunities over the 2 years that follow. And Saturn witnesses everything from the 10th house of career. And he also wants to increase your financial success in more passive income structures or other ways through your career mastery and authority. With what Mars is doing in your 8th house, are there secrets? First of all, you could have a secret love affair in the next 2 years. Cosmic lovers in the 8th house. Secrets can be spilled, particularly about romance or about your family of origin in the 2 years that follow. You may find out things you didn't know. Now, I would say that, square the nodes of fate, you're going to have some tension with a child. You may have some tension with friendship groups over the next 2 years. You may also look at the fact that Uranus is saying, I want you to have innovation in originality and unexpected, exciting developments in the house of foreign countries, foreign lands, and foreign shores. Money you accrue through those places, borderless revenue from foreign places, international sources. That today is easy for online work, PayPal and Stripe and all of that kind of stuff. So you may be succeeding that way. You may also have a journey or a move to another country with Jupiter here that allows you to reside somewhere other than your place of birth and increase your financial well-being. I just said to my partner, can we move to the United States because my tax bill is going to be insane in Canada this year, and I can, like get a company in Wyoming or something where I don't have to pay any taxes. And so, like, I'm not joking. It could be something as simple as that for my Gemini sun. Juno, the goddess of marriage in the 4th house, could indicate partnering with people for purchases of property in the next 2 years. Mortgages and finances and brokerage firms are up here in the 8th house. This is land, property, home, and real estate. Some of you may buy some property in the next couple of years, but you may have to collaborate or partner up to do it. Or you may get married in and from the home, or get married because you have an opportunity to, travel to a far off place. And, maybe it's better to be married to go there visa-wise or something like that. So there's a lot of command of commitment, partnerships, and in the home, at the home, from the home. I think it's a lot of you, it's going to be buying or selling a property and in a partnership with another person, not just yourself. And, I think you really want to move towards more passive income here, opposing Apollo in the house of the daily grind and the hustle. So a lot of you, Gemini, Sun, Moon, and Rising, could even retire. Mars here is like a retirement signature, and begin to rely on money that you've accrued and investments that you have made. All right. I should have said inheritances. I think I did, as well as inheritances. All right. Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising sign. So what happens is Mars rises in the visible sky in your house of marriage and business partners, clients, marketplace, and audience. All those significant others that help your career thrive, right? 10th from the 10th. And the 7th house, therefore, is on fire for 2 years. Now, if you're single, we got baking good Venus and Mars, the cosmic lovers. You could get a new person. You singleton, Cancer rising, especially, could be in line for a big, bold, fun, superpower, new relationship that may also be very resourceful. And you may meet somebody from a foreign country, foreign land, international, or in an academic setting or legal setting, Saturn in the ninth house. If you're with somebody already, however, this can be legal battles and contracts in a relationship and having to go to court. This can also look like legal court matters just being able to be negotiated and deal making happening through, judges finally favoring you, negotiation, mediation, and settlements coming to pass in the next 2 years. If you want to sell something to an audience, be persuasive and charming and charismatic. Often Venus here in the seventh can do that. Mars rising, good next couple of years for promoting your published book, right? Saturn in the house of publications, Venus like the, publicist and, going on shows. Mercury and Mars is traveling to different shows or, being on the road to go to different cities to talk about your book or just getting a lot of promotional gusto going regarding publications if that's something you do. Mars is definitely squaring the nodes of fate, and you have some conflicts and difficulties in the next 2 years regarding home. You might want to let go of a home, sell a home, relieve a home, release a home, destroy and rebuild a home. At the same time, you got to get your partner on board, and they may not be there with you, your significant other, or you may have legal contracts and problems around the home. And then you also could see some tension in the career space as well, especially as it's relative to a relationship in your life, where you're definitely getting more success and you're being a rebel and you're breaking out and you're shining a lot of light in the world. You're leaning into your truer purpose. But yeah, you may have some conflict with either really bad trolls that are over the top or your partner over the next couple of years, just not, I doth object to you being so busy with your work or something like that. The trine to Uranus can bring some exciting developments in terms of great career gains through the marketplace, the audience, the public. It can give you lots of favors, unexpected favors from people in power, from elder siblings, people who want to dispense goodwill towards you and help you out. That increases, and you may expand unexpectedly into new, very, very powerful, influential groups of people, or become influential over groups of people over the next couple of years. And lastly, if you're in a relationship that's suffering, it may end. Mars here can cut, end, and sever a significant long-term business or love relationship. If it ends, it's going to be okay. Venus is there. It's a benefic ending. It's meant to happen, so something better can happen. Not to scare you, but that Mars can also make you a widower or widow if you're a certain age. I'm not going to say you young 20-year-olds who are married, you should be worried. No. But if you're older and you're listening to this could be a sign that your partner's going to, exit stage left. It can be that, may not be that, but it could be that. Leo, sun, moon, and rising sign. Mars is rising into the visible sky, and he's doing that in your house of work and health. Now, it's good for your health, especially if you want to start moving in a new way. Go to the dojo, find a new, go mountain climbing, hiking, find a new exercise path, and then you'll invigorate your health over the next 2 years. Also good for cutting out addictions and self-undoing, bad habits and patterns, especially addictions. Let it go, especially pleasures that aren't good for you. Replacing them with better, more refined pleasures, Venus. Really great for getting a new pet as well in the next 2 years, but also sadly with Mars here, likely the end of one pet's life in the next 2 years. If your pet is elderly, right, probably, but it can be also accidents with a pet. Be careful. Mars is rising in his exaltation in the house of sickness, and this is a sign of the knees. Be careful with your knees over the next 2 years, Leo, for knee injuries, a knee stress and knee strain. You could definitely have a knee problem or an injury or an inflammation in the next couple of years. Mercury is about communication and Mars is about action. And this is a house of work. You may be changing your house. You may be communicating a lot more messaging and writing or texting people regarding work situations, but you also may be moving or changing your work. Mars can get you fired here and a better job can emerge in the next 2 years, or you could quit your job and a better job can emerge in the next 2 years. Especially with that trine to Uranus, it suggests that something exciting, unexpected, and good, bounteous, and prosperous is coming through your career and reputation sky. And with a Juno in the second house of earnings in that grand Earth trine, you're looking like you're going to be making more money. You're going to get new contracts and deals or agreements for earnings and job stuff. A lot of you look like you're getting a new job or an upgrade in the work you do over the next 2 years. Mars is in his joy in the sixth house in Hellenistic astrology. So he's very powerful here for you. He's rising in his exaltation sign and he's in his joy. So yeah, it's really good for your work situation. Possibly you could also rent a property out or get a rental. He rules your fourth house of property. He's in the house of rentals. And some of you may be getting rental properties. It's also stabilization of your long-term treasure chest savings and assets. That looks like really good on you. It looks like you might be really, with that Saturn in the eighth house, really structuring and stabilizing your long-term savings and your 401k and your investments, and maybe even eliminating a debt like paying off a mortgage or something in the next 2 years. There's a square to the nodes of fate, some tension with courts, legal matters, foreign lands and foreign travel, maybe some tension regarding publishers and publications. Also, maybe some tension regarding younger sibling. And unfortunately, here with Shiva the Destroyer, and a south node, you may have a falling out or disconnection from a younger sibling in the couple of years that follow this particular story. Or a younger sibling could have some health challenges, and you may have some involvement with supporting them through a time of difficult health challenges. Virgo, sun, moon, and rising sign. I know a lot of you guys. And here we go back to 1977. I hope you guys remember in the beginning. Go to 77 January, add 24 months. This is the last time that Mars was rising into the sky in your fifth house of children, conception, sexuality, and romance, creativity, the muse, entrepreneurial and independent business projects and enterprises. Well, holy moly. What happened back then, right? If you were alive back then, right? Go back to 77 January, add a couple of years. Did you conceive a child? Did you lose a child? Mars can bring miscarriages here or abortions or terminations of pregnancies. But there was stuff going on to do with Mars themes in a house of conception, procreation, but also a house of creativity. You might have been passionately creative. You might have been super focused and willpowered and passionately disciplined about getting something done in an entrepreneurial or consulting or independent business manner. You may also have encountered back then and this time a new relationship. The cosmic lovers in the house of romantic love is here this time, and maybe last time that also happened, but this is going to be a very good one because Venus is here. So any new relationships that come up in the next couple of years new significant love stories are going to look really good on you. But Mars can also end one, especially with Lord Saturn in your seventh house. It can be both a beginning and an ending. In the next 2 years, one relationship can likely end and a new one can likely begin. Not necessarily, but likely, probably yes. Saturn is testing a relationship, making your partner maybe more melancholic, distant, cold, or the relationship itself is under like duress. You're checking the foundation for cracks. And at the same time, Mars is doing the bidding of Saturn in the house of sexual romance. So there may be some kind of ending, cutting, and severing with a relationship, or a child moves out of your home if you have to denest a kid over the next couple of years. Now, you're really focused on the idea here of an Earth trine to Jupiter, Uranus, and Albion in the ninth house. You may be looking at unexpected opportunities over the next couple of years to get a book publishing deal, to travel abroad, to join a new faith or spiritual path, especially with Jupiter up there, that breaks the rules but gives you great satisfaction. I never thought I'd become a Sufi. I never thought I'd be a whirling dervish. Can't believe I become a Catholic church person. Some kind of unexpected spiritual faith direction change can happen. But it's also an academic setting, the Jupiter-Uranus placement. And so you may have some unexpected, powerful, positive developments in the land of higher education and academics. And they unfold maybe over a couple of years. With a baked-in Juno, you are looking at the lens of life through committed love and long-term love relationships. But Juno rules divorce as much as connecting and marrying somebody. And therefore, you're very possibly looking very squarely at questions to do with should I stay or should I go? And that is going to look like a possibility of an ending, as I mentioned earlier, for some of you in a significant love relationship. Because this rising is square the nodes of fate and the money houses, there's some tension regarding finances in the next 2 years as it applies to inheritance monies and a decline in your earnings. Shiva the Destroyer is destroying an earnings path, but Mars has got you all excited about entrepreneurship. all excited about creativity in different ways of generating money and money luck. Venus is inner joy in a money luck house. So you can be quite lucky with money over the next couple of years, actually. And the square from Mars in the money luck house, including lottery wins, played the lottery in the next couple of years, to the North Node Chiron and the rebel angel Lucifer in your 8th house of inheritances is somewhat evocative of a potential, especially with Mercury here, a little bit of a battle over some finances that come through legacy wealth or inheritance money can be occurring here, especially with Jupiter, Lord of the 4th house in the house of courts. But if that happens, you will prevail. Venus is trining Jupiter in the house of courts, and that will look very good on you indeed. Libra, sun, moon, and rising sign. Okay, so last time we saw Mars rising in Capricorn is 1977, the month of January, add 24 months to see how that influence felt if you were alive and you can remember that time. Mars is rising in your 4th house of homeland, property, and real estate. This is the area where the on switch is. A lot of you may move to another country, get expated, become an exile from your homeland, but you may also become very successful in land, property, and real estate, or legacy wealth from the family of origin, therefore inheritances, especially for a lot of you Libras. If you have any chance of inheritances, they're likely to show up in the next couple of years. Jupiter in the inheritance 8th house with Uranus unexpectedly showing up, unfortunately. You also may buy, purchase, sell real estate, invest in the stock markets, and create thrival in your life over the next 2 years. Saturn is also suggesting possibilities of new rental situations emerging over the next couple of years, as well as new animal pet situations in a very flowing and positive way. Lots of love and fun and romance in the home, but with Mars down there, sometimes if you're not fighting, you're doing renovations and construction and changing the nature of the home, building an addition, adding something to your home. Mercury allows you to make deals, negotiate, be passionately directed and willful in and from your home over the next 2 years. This can definitely look like a lot of work from home with Saturn in the house of work and Mars sextiling from the 4th house. And maybe if you want to work from home, this is a beginning of time where working from home becomes quite a possible thing for you and no more going to the office if not wanted. And I think that's about it. You definitely look like you want to get more down in the home and away from having to work in the outer world for some of you guys, if you already haven't achieved that particular aspect of reality. All right, Scorpio, Mars is your guy, right? Just like Aries, he's your ruler. So this is important. In 1977, add 2 years, 24 months. This is when this happened, January 77. You had Mars rising in your 3rd house of travel. Short distance travel, the local neighborhood, the neighbors, the younger sibling, maybe your cousins, things to do with writing projects. Now in our modern day, the online world, emails, phone calls, like more like, your website, your social media platform, but also, anything you do online. So this kind of energy is going to rise. Mars is rising. He's exalted. It's really good for Scorpios who are writers. It's really good for Scorpios who do a lot of work in the online world. This is going to amplify your success here, especially commercially, especially with Venus, make it more lucrative financially. And because you also can see that there is a beautiful flow to Jupiter, Uranus, your outreach to your clients, audience, marketplace, 7th house matters is exquisite. But it also could suggest if you're a single Scorpio, meeting somebody new on a trip or in an educational skills-based learning setting, 3rd house, and getting a really powerful new and long-lasting, abundant and wealthy relationship. If you're with somebody already, the existing relationship will benefit from 3rd house matters, including travel, right? Together with your person. Mars in the 3rd house is your elder sibling, and they may have some challenges, and you're flowing to them, so it's not about you. They may have some challenges with their health, perhaps, or because Venus is there very protectively, you may get much more involved proximately with your younger sibling. Like you guys may live closer in neighborly ways to each other over the next 2 years if you have a younger sibling, especially the one just under you by age. Well, there is Saturn in the fifth house of children, creativity, romance, and sexuality and art. And with Venus in the third, and Mars rising in the house of social media, some of you may have some kind of success with your creativity and your entrepreneurial things increasingly positively over the next 2 years. Venus is a fertility god, and you and your partner could get pregnant during a trip in the next couple of years. Now, you do have a square to the nodes of fate, as we all do, as Mars rises, and he's not too happy with the work and work routines and the health and health routines. And he's trying to make a change to heal that and to bring some rebellious freedom and new directions in the way you do the work and the work routines. And you may indeed be changing your work or line of work in order to be more physically well. Mars would say like maybe less commuting, maybe more, calmer pace, or find a new location to work. And then, of course, South Node over here with Shiva the Destroyer, some significant tension regarding 12th house matters. Now, honestly, there can be some losses in your life through people who are sick in the hospital in the next couple of years, as one example. But there also may be, with Mars cutting the South Node Shiva in your 12th house, changes regarding your own self-undoing. Time to let go of the nicotine or the cigarette, the vape, the wine, whatever the habit is that no longer serves you, whatever the bad addictive pattern and sabotaging self-undoing things that you have in your life, Mars can sever, cut, and end those over the next 2 years. And finally, marriage partnerships in the visible sky, flowing to the Uranus, Jupiter, flowing to some of you are getting married in the next 2 years after Mars rises. But you may also partner with larger groups of people or allies who act as benefactors or even elder sibling in order to achieve some great success in your online world, writing world, your social media land down here. Alrighty, we shall move on. Don't forget, Scorpio, go watch my Mars Kazemi video that I put out in November. Mars is setting a new 2-year cycle for your very identity. Mars died in the heart of the sun in the sign of you. That's important for you to listen to. I really want you to go find that video. Don't miss it. It's really a crucial piece of the story here, right? You are dramatically changing your identity. Everything. I am what? You define yourself, your job, your marital status, whatever. Things are all changing. All right, Sagittarius, sun, moon, and rising sign. So you have here is you have the energy of Mars rising, not seen since 1977 January, add 2 years, in your second house. This is a money story for you. You're going to cut, end, and sever maybe some way of earning money. It's time to let it go. Mars exalted can also have you spending quite a bit of money here. But with Venus, it's going to all work out. You might be spending money for things that are quite refined or luxurious, but as you spend, you also know that commerce god Mercury can also fortify and shore up your money story and create income sources to replace the spent money. You may definitely look, though, at Mercury here as a negotiation guy and Mars as an ending guy, and Juno in the 10th house, suggesting maybe a change of job, a change of career path, but it's very positive for you over the next 2 years. The flow. Oh, and let me also say, you need facial surgery, jaw, teeth, all that stuff, veneers, whatever. This is Mars, like, perfectly helping you get all that facial, face surgery, jaw, throat stuff squared away, including the word surgery, or lasers or dermabrasions and stuff. Also, Mars can cut and end your food styles that are no longer good for you, especially addictions. He rules your 12th house. So you'll get rid of your addictions probably, but you'll get rid of food styles and you'll lean out your food styles. You'll cut away substances that you ingest like gluten or something that are not working for your body. Because Venus here wants to make you more facially attractive and your speech more refined and attractive, and Mercury's a speech god. You may be finding yourself speaking a lot in the next couple of years, maybe in front of people. At the top of the sky, Juno, look for that as a possibility. Getting on talk shows, getting on radio shows, going on public stages, who knows what. You can see that you have Juno, the marriage goddess, at the top of the sky. I wonder if some of you are not going to get married, okay, over the next 2 years. We see this flow to Jupiter, Uranus, in the 6th house of work and health. So again, changing your food style is a big one for a lot of you Sag rising, sun and moon secondarily, but also opportunities for career and work change are on the menu for you. Sudden, unexpected, exciting, exhilarating, Career and work changes coming for you, breaking the rules, new kinds of work, things you've never done before, but exciting new work opportunities and career growth and financial expansion over the next 2 years for a lot of Sag, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Yes, 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 yes. Mars is square the nodes of fate. Mars is square the nodes of fate. So you're going to have some tension with your children. You're going to have some tension with some friendship groups. You may be ending friendships. Some long-term friendships could come to an end. Some groups that you thought were your people, your tribe, you're going to let those go. You're going to walk away perhaps. Time to destroy those associations and affiliations. Time also to look at potentially maybe mending and healing a connection to a child through emails or phone calls or speech. And Saturn wants to stabilize you in your home life, and he's the Lord of the earnings. So a lot of this new earnings stuff, I mean, Mars is rising in the house of earnings, and that's Saturn's home. You could get some new earning strategies from and in your home, basically, okay? Things to do with how money can come to you through a home-based structure of some kind, some working from home energy really strongly applying to many of you Sagittarians. Now, Capricorn, Sun, Moon, and Rising, this is happening in the sign of you. So this is your story. If you go back to 1977, January, and add 24 months, this is when you were having a Mars rising in the house of you. Now, Mars rising around 17 Capricorn indicates that you people close to 17 Capricorn by rising sign. Let's go 3 on either side, 15 to 21. Capricorn really are incredibly potent in the next 2 years. You are decisive, forceful, combative. You are superpowered, Superman, Wonder Woman. You are making decisions and taking actions from a place of executive command. So it's really a nice time. But all Capricorns, whether degree based to the Mars or not, will feel this. You can also say that you're more attractive, more persuasive, more charismatic, more refined over the next 2 years, as Venus is co-present during this rising, and Mercury is making you quite the champion, advocate, warrior, hero, communicator, if that's something you're into over the next couple of years. See, when Mars is rising in the house of you got the sword in your hand. No one's pointing it at you. You are the one with the sharp object in your hand. So you're focused on what you want to do with this energy that you are embodying. Saturn, the Lord of Capricorn, suggests you might do a lot of embodying through travel, quite a bit of travel, or you may rinse, repeat. Saturn, travel, travel, travel. You also could be doing writing. You could be doing things in the online world. You could be setting up shop in your local neighborhood and building a store or something. You could also lease a store in a local neighborhood in this particular chart. And, lease property, commercial real estate, build or set up a neighborhood business, but also an online business. Because you have the rising trine Jupiter, Uranus in the 5th house, positive, unexpected, and surprising developments around children, maybe even grandchildren, Juno in Virgo in the 9th, but these should be positive. You also might want to break some creative rules and do things outside the box creatively. But if you are an entrepreneur or you want to be self-employed, then this is going to open up double doors of yes, yes, yes for you. Jupiter with Albion means you do it your own way. You're rule breaking, you're consulting or doing entrepreneurial or self-enterprise, business enterprise in a kind of unusual way that's not quite been seen before. You're cutting through new innovative territory here. It can be very good, though, if you're looking to be conceiving a child, Venus in the house of you, baked in, and Jupiter in the house of children. Mars can make you very focused, ambitious, and directed around conceiving a child with you, or you as a woman or your partner. Jupiter can bring you some unexpected money luck, and this definitely can look a little bit like, well, I might win the lottery, and I'm so passionately excited about it, because Mercury also gains a chance in the house of you. You might want to use this as well with Juno in the 9th. If you ever thought you wanted to publish or write a book, you've got all systems go to get a contract for a creative writing project looking like a publication deal. Also really good for getting education at your highest educational endeavors, like in others, applying to your most amazing dream come true university or college, and yes, in the next 2 years being accepted. square to the nodes of fate in the 10th house and the 4th house. Some tension here, maybe with a parent, with a mother figure, some tension here regarding things going on in and from your home, your homeland. You got that chironic wound, Capricorn, since 2019. You don't know where you belong, where you're supposed to nest yourself. And this can be very much a time in the next 2 years where Mars, the god of adventure and travel and change and directions of cutting and ending, is trying to help you cut into and away from some of this wound. Because Chiron will meet with the North Node in February, I think that energy is going to come to an end of being wounded in the sense of not knowing your home, true home, or feeling at home in the world. You're letting go of an old reputation career path. It's falling going the way of the dinosaur, right? And yet Mars is cutting, ending, and severing with a sharp sword that you're holding. You're making the decisions to, I'm no longer being that, doing that. That path is no longer for me. I do not want to be that. Be nice to your partner in love and business, because that sharp sword could poke them in the eye. They are in the 7th house right across the way. Okay. Mars does rule your house of elder sibling and benefits and help benefactors. So from friends and allies. So you're likely to see some serious helpful friends, allies, and benefactors, elder sibling, even really reaching out to support you in whatever you're up to over the next couple of years. You can count on, friends in high places, benefactors, and supporters to be on team you. All right, Aquarius, I'm one of you, sun, moon, and rising sign. If I'm talking too fast, just, slow me down on the playback speed and hit that like button and subscribe. I forgot to shout out all my regulars on this video. Sorry, guys. The next video, I'll do that at the start. All right, Aquarius, sun, moon, and rising sign. Here we have the sort of vibe that you might be looking at a move to another country with Mars here over the next 2 years, or travel extensively to a foreign shore. For me, I was alive, obviously 77, 78, 79. I traveled to Mexico City and Acapulco, my first time ever out of Canada. I was a teenager in a Spanish class expedition, and boy, did it change my life. And it also gave me the travel love, travel bug that never left me since then. I love to experience foreign food, cultures, people, land, and languages. And I think that for some of you depends on your age. You go back to 77, January, I had 2 years. Did you do any travel to foreign places? But you can also move to a foreign place with this, and it'd be very auspicious and prosperous as it flows to Jupiter, Uranus in the 4th house. And you'd have a prosperous home and a prosperous life and a big home and exciting sudden developments regarding your home as it applies to travel or moves to other countries from the place of your birth. You can definitely prosper online by doing PayPal Stripe accounts, international revenue over the next 2 years. You're killing it. If you use international revenue as a source of revenue, then you're making a lot of money over the next 2 years. And Juno is about contractual agreements in the house of chunky money. Maybe you and your marriage partner are both thriving over the next 2 years. Maybe you and a business partner are thriving over the next 2 years. Maybe you have a deal around a legacy, wealth, inheritance, and you're going to thrive a bit from that over the next 2 years. Mercury is connected deeply to this rising, and he rules your house of money, luck, and games and gambling. So it's not a bad idea to try playing a lottery ticket after Mars is visible, and you might win something, or go to the casino. But generally, you could have a bit more money luck over the next couple of years as well. I say that Saturn in the 2nd house is stabilizing all of our Aquarian earnings. We are saving more money than we ever have. We're structuring our finances so we can keep more money that we make. We're being very cautious with our spending. This is how Saturn is helping us over the next 2 years. He started last year doing this in March. He finishes in February of 2026. He's witnessing Mars. And so the money that you make through travel, foreign shores, foreign lands is going to go somewhere into your savings account, right? Not going to go to waste. And also Saturn, Venus up in your 12th house can indicate with Mars, the cosmic lovers in foreign lands, or more bed pleasures and romantic parts of your life, more satisfaction in the privacy of your boudoir and your bedroom and your quiet home life out of the public eye. Indeed, 12, 4, and 8, where the Earth trine is, our moksha spiritual liberation houses. You never know, you might find yourself moving more in alignment with spiritual awakening over the next 2 years. Certainly with Jupiter in the 4th house, you might get involved in a teaching or a teacher in a home or homeland, and maybe connecting to some new spiritual direction. The square to the nodes of fate indicates some tension regarding a younger sibling, or also to do with the word publications and ninth house matters, courts, legal matters. Ninth house things can also be third marriage areas, like you're in a third long-term love relationship. There may be some tension there. The North Node in your third house is great for writing. It's great for the online world, but you're also seeing Mars squaring it. There may be a pulling away, or maybe like Mars in the 12th is like in the writer's studio. So you may end up being more engaged in some kind of creative art projects over the 2 years that take you out of the limelight and behind the scenes. And the square to the third house of social media could pull you away from the social media world if you've been inhabiting it, in terms of being very visible, right? Being always out there, like I am, for example, on these YouTube videos. Okay, we're going to move on now and talk about Pisces. Oh, wait. I almost forgot one. I want to write the wine lover's middle way. I swear this is what this is, right? So addiction, self-undoing, and self-sabotage. 12th house. Mars, cut, end, and sever. Mercury, right. Venus, wine. So you may find yourself really coming to terms with something to do with the final ending and final releasing of some part of your reality that you know isn't the best thing for you, like too much cigarettes, wine, vapes, whatever you do that you know you shouldn't do, mentally, emotionally, or physically, that's undermining yourself, undermining your wellness on all levels, what can be coming to a close over the next 2 years. Okay, but Venus is still up there in the 12th house. So there is still pleasure and joy, but maybe also in a more sensible, cautious, and refined way. I think about the wine lover's middle way, which my first hack is start with martinis. Is that like I'd rather drink $100 bottle of wine a week, right? Than 5 mediocre bottles a week. So there's something about what you can do with I could do with a Venus refinement in Capricorn. Get ready for the Wine Lover's Middle Way, best-selling New York Times best-selling book and podcast. Finally, the end of the narrative for all of us is the Piscean narrative. Okay, Pisces, sun, moon, and rising sign, loving this for you. You're looking at the energy of a Capricorn story that happened in 1977. And I want you to think about what was changing January, February, March, okay, in 1977. Not January of 1977 through to January of 1979. You were making changes in your 11th house, or the gods were changing you. You may have changed your career gain strategy. You may have changed your job and made money in a new way. You may have had a falling out with a sibling. You could also have had a loss of a sibling older. You may also have had something to do with ending your groups of friends and belonging, cutting out of a club or a group that you thought was important or was a part of your reality. You can also look at what you might have been doing then, because we're going to talk about now, to do with the end of a significant friendship, because Venus was up there, and that was going on in 1977. Some of you were very young, so it may not pertain as much to some of those things at that age, but go back and think. Now, here's a really interesting thing. I mean, to have Venus up here with this Mars rising and Mercury could indicate over the next 2 years, a lot of Pisces are going to increase their success financially in their career through Mercurial Mars endeavors. Now, Mars can indicate here that you're going to be very driven and focused and passionate and have a lot of willpower to achieve something that you are doing through commerce, sales, speaking, communicating, negotiating, the art of the deal, or something like that. And then at the same time, this rising is flowing to Uranus in the house of travel, or Uranus in the third house of the online world, or the younger sibling. You got younger and older sibling energy, 3 and 11, very active for a lot of Pisceans. Now, if you're going to make some kind of financial gain change from your career path, and you're no longer making money the old way from the 10th house, Jupiter, the Lord of your 10th house, says you're going to work online. You're going to travel to work. You're going to learn something new, a new livelihood, a skills-based education over the next 2 years to create a different livelihood. Or you're going to make money as a teacher, guide, instructor, coach, teacher, maybe even, a therapist, mentor therapist. All the other things I'd say is the unexpected quality of Uranus in the third house, unexpected financial success in your career coming through something to do with maybe unexpected developments around your neighborhood, neighbors, and your children. I mean, and your younger sibling. You have Juno in the marriage house. There's something going on there for Pisces. It's flow, it's earth flow, resourcefulness, and financial goodness coming through the marriage and business partnerships that you engage in. And you and your partner in business and love are romantically, or business partnerships are increasing your jointly held wealth over the next 2 years. You may have an exciting change of neighborhood that allows you to generate more satisfaction regarding your career gains as well. That can be a big picture story. Saturn in the house of you making you realistic and sober-minded witnesses Jupiter, and suggests that he may please Lord Saturn by giving you some really powerful goods in the house of writing and the social media land and the local neighborhood. So you got the Saturnian eyeball on the scene. You're looking at everything as if you are Saturn. And then finally, I would say the square to the nodes of fate can give you some difficulties in the 2 years that follow this heliacal rise, kind of baking into problems in your 8th house of chunky money, investments, stock markets, 401k. Be very careful in the next 2 years about risky investments. You may not do very well. Be very conservative and cautious about investing into stock markets or commercial enterprises. You can also see that you're kind of dealing with some tension in the earnings part of the sky. Your earnings are increasing. You're trying to be earning money on purpose. You're trying to do it in a rebellious you way. But your 11th house is also socialization, like with fun groups of people and larger social networks. And that looks a little bit difficult for you. There's some tension there that maybe your social life is going to suffer in the next 2 years, and your friendship groups are kind of severed and cut. You might end up having to let some of that intensity in the 11th house of groups of belonging, influence, and friendships can be at odds with the money story that you must navigate, which is to increase your earnings and not rely on the inheritance money, your spouse's money, your savings, your 401k, your inheritance money. You need to let go of that. Mars is going to make you let go if you don't. And again, please be careful with investments. With the South Node and Shiva the Destroyer in the house of the stock market kind of thing for you guys, you can make some really critically poor moves or decisions around that matter. Okay, be careful. Do not do anything super risky in the markets or in the investments and all of that. Lastly, women and men or people can benefit you, act like big siblings and allies, and you may financially benefit, particularly from an elder sibling, in a very powerful and positive way over the next 2 years. Wow, that was a long video. Thanks for listening this long, guys. I think it's dark here now. I have a ring light now because it's so dark. I started ages ago. I hope that was useful. Thank you to all my regulars. You guys know who you are. Yeah, that's what it's going to do. I got some newbies coming in these days. I got my little, funny enough, I got a guest book to keep the names in here, and I was traveling. I didn't have it with me. But I'm seeing some new people. Electric Lake, you're old, but you're back. A Monk of the West, Annick Hendricks, Jellybean Cosmostrology, Lauren Delaney, Diana Boss, Matthew Smithson. Here's my new people showing up. Strictly Gaming, I haven't seen you for ages. Up with Kina, Kathleen Brown, Stephanie Vella, Sedona Horse Medicine, Fran Osher, Ace of Spades, Diana Boss, Vancouver Vixen, Our Soul Songs, Bold and Beautiful Tarot, Noah Morgan, Balkan 200, MM Grounded Extracts, Linda Calder, Herbal Empress, and KMR, and more. Just a few of the people I've gotten to know over the last year or so who show up in my live premieres. If that interests you at all, we will discuss astrology while I'm watching the video with you. And I do take personal questions. I'm not read your chart, can't do that, but about how this plays out in your sky. I'm engaging you in a community vibe on YouTube. So try subscribing, liking, hitting the notification bell. Thanks everyone who made it this far. Wow, it was a long video. I'm hoping this is going to give you some great navigational guidance using the tool of astrology.